I said, can I just say goodbye to them? And I remember going over and telling them I gotta go. And I can hear their screams, worse than any police call I ever been on, in my own heart. They're screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, please don't go. Please don't go." And it was wailing screams. And I said, it's okay. And I said something I probably shouldn't have, but I said, Mommy got us in a little bit of trouble.
All right. Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, where are you from originally?
So I'm from Nutley, New Jersey, which is a town located in Essex County, New Jersey, just outside of Newark, the largest city in New Jersey. Busy, heavy in crime, and it's a city that I'd come to know a little more intimately than I'd care to know. You
got involved in law enforcement?
I did. I'm a 28-year plus veteran at the rank of lieutenant in the Northern New Jersey Police Department. And the rest of it is that I have a badge number and I also have an inmate number. So it's something you don't commonly hear. It happens. And you might think dirty cop, corrupt cop. That's not my story. It wasn't corruption. I wasn't a dirty cop, but the system definitely did me dirty.
Tell me your story. So
Yeah, so I'm a Northern New Jersey kid. Started, I guess, back when I was 5 years old. I remember my parents were divorced. And I don't remember it too much, but it wasn't really a broken home or family or anything like that. But I do remember when I came to adulthood, I learned that my mother had an affair with an uncle who was an alcoholic and basically abandoned me at my grammar school in Northern New Jersey. And the teachers were like, "Hey, where's your parents?" I said I didn't know. Had to call my father. My father, who was a research and development chemist for a pharmaceutical company, developed a bunch of actually kind of famous drugs, one being Valium and another one being Versed. But he was a scientist, and he got this call to come get his child, and then he got a Dear John letter. And my mother basically abandoned me at the age of 5, and I was taken to my grandparents' home, also in Northern New Jersey, and my father raised me as a single father, giving me all the things that pretty much children want. So I had an average sort of childhood. I started going through grammar school and doing all the things that Northern New Jersey kids do, and he did everything by himself. So I started to get into school, sports, things like that, going up through high school. And I remember what planted the seed as law enforcement is there's a career day. And a New Jersey state trooper was a former high school alumni. I was looking for direction. I didn't know what I was going to do. Just a kid trying to find his way through high school. And this New Jersey state trooper came in, and the uniform, the squared away look, the physical fitness, this man commanded attention and respect of the room. And it got my attention too. So it planted the seed. Wasn't really set on being a cop right then and there. And I started going up through college, and I started to really go down a path of some non-productive behaviors. And I was a frustrated rock and roll musician, and I had everything but talent. So I started living the lifestyle, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and not necessarily in that order. And I was really good at the lifestyle, but I didn't have the talent. And I realized that this lifestyle is not going to lead to anything positive. It's not going to come to an outcome. I'm an only child, no siblings, no mother, just a father. I had plans in my mind that I wanted to be a family man. I wanted to start a family. And I had to put that other sort of lifestyle aside because it was self-destructive. So I started to actively work towards becoming a police officer. I started becoming a private investigator. I did undercover work in retail environments and started doing surveillance for matrimonial workers' comp cases. And eventually a position came up in a police department for a civilian dispatcher. Started taking tests, which is common in New Jersey because it was very competitive at the time. And I wound up actually scoring number one on that exam, and chief came in, we're going to hire you and we're going to send you to the police academy. So I feel this is paving the way towards that family and that lifestyle, the American dream that I thought was the right way to go. Get into the police academy, and I actually do very well. I'm like, take to it like a fish to water. And cops tend to talk about awards and things that they get for valor, and I've had those. But the one that really meant the most to me was one that I got in a police academy, and it's called the Merit Award. And the Merit Award is not a popularity contest, but it's taken by all your colleagues in the police academy, and they vote on that award, and it's awarded by the Police Training Commission, and it's for the person that they think will excel at the law enforcement profession, who will be the model cop or the model chief, future model chief. It's basically who you want to have as a partner. And it's not awarded till graduation day, and I got it. And I said, this is the dream. This is the next step in my dream. Well, it was a dream, but the nightmare was just waiting around the corner. So I go through, I have one marriage, pre-police and into post-police. My first ex-wife, and there's a joke that says, hey, you're not a real cop unless you got a couple of ex-wives, right? Well, I fell into that as well. It couldn't survive the shift work, the rigors, and the trauma. I was seeing death, carnage, suicide, children dying. I had one man that sticks out in my mind that set himself on fire just shortly to me arriving. And I saw him completely engulfed in flames from head to toe. And his life just escaped right in front of me. So I saw him actively die. We go to post-death scenes, like I've seen people gone from living to dying, and that leaves a mark. Don't want to tell war stories, but that's part of it. And that one sticks out pretty vividly, the smell and all that to this day. But I started actually advancing in the police department. I got involved in training. I got involved in accident reconstruction and all these sort of parts of the profession that really advance you towards the top. I was promoted to sergeant and then promoted to lieutenant. And then I started to take on administrative responsibilities that are really close to the law enforcement executive. And actually at one time I reported directly to the chief of police in my agency, mid-size agency, doing accreditation, policy work. I worked the SWAT team, which was one of my favorite details as well. Hut training stuff, we used to say. And, did a couple of call outs and raids, and, it was kind of the complete package. During that time, I met an EMT. And this EMT, this isn't really like a Lady and the Tramp love story, but instead of spaghetti and meatballs, we met over a sick prisoner. So we had this prisoner who fell ill, and I don't know if you want to say it's love at first sight, but a romance bloomed, and here I go, headed for my second marriage. Marriage goes great, and my plan is, again, coming to fruition. We started a family, intentionally, very intentionally, no accidents, and my first daughter was born in 2009, and it was a game changer. Here's a guy who has no mother. I'm estranged from my father because of my previous lifestyle choices. I was thrown out of the home that I was raised in for good reason, because I deserved it. And but now I'm building this family. Another daughter comes along just about 2 years later, a little under, and then my third daughter is born. and I'm becoming the family man that I thought I never would be. So did all the father things. I'm being a cop, I'm balancing work, and I'm trying to bring them the fatherhood and the family that I just never had. And I wanted this to be my legacy. But about 10 years into the marriage, it started to devolve a bit, and markedly, at one point, my wife's father came down with a critical, life-threatening liver injury. And I don't know if it's a first responder in me or trying to be a good husband or maintain the family, I actually offered to donate part of my liver. So as an Irishman, they might say there's a joke in there, giving somebody an Irishman's liver, but I was willing to do it. It would never happen because 6 months after that, her father would succumb to the liver illness and eventually die. And I say that's a dividing point in the relationship because my wife's demeanor completely changed. She just checked out of the marriage despite my best efforts. And I think it was the beginning of the end. So you go forward, and the date is, it's a date that lives in my mind, March 28th, 2019. We're having a discussion over disciplining our eldest daughter, and an argument ensues. Nothing physical, no history of violence or anything in the marriage or anything like that. Little arguments here and there, just basic marriage stuff. And during this, my wife decides to pick up the phone, dial 911 to the local PD and says, "My husband is a police lieutenant and he's out of control. I need you to get here." And I am completely in disbelief. My daughters are now witness to this, mom and dad having an argument, and I wanted to shield them from every ill that I knew in the police department and from my former life. Now, the house that we are in is one that I inherited from my father. 4 generations. I wanted to raise the family in that home. It's a humble home. But when my father died, I found out, even though we were estranged, he decided to leave me the family home. And I only found that out because I went to his deathbed and he was nonverbal, and I couldn't even tell him that, or I don't know if he heard that I loved him. And I told him I loved him and I'm sorry. But he left me that home. And my dad, being a scientist, kind of a unique man, a man of science, but he's also an outdoorsman. So he was a hunter, fisher, all those type of things. And he had collected a pretty decent gun collection during that time. And, we're in this home, and I'm thinking I don't want all this to happen, but I tell my spouse, I'm like, listen, they're coming in hot. You just told him there's a cop here. He's involved in some type of incident, not a domestic violence incident, but a general domestic squabble. And I said, I have to go wait out front. I got to just calm them down. Being a boss in a New Jersey police department, I know what they're going through and what they're thinking. They're thinking the worst. So they get there, they interact with me, and I tell them I'm unarmed. My duty weapon is inside. It's secured in a safe. There's another personally owned firearm, ironically enough, one from my father that I had trained my wife on how to use in the event that I wasn't home. And being a cop, we have security issues and we're protective of the family. So I said, she has one right by her bed. They're all locked. There's no violence. There's no anything going on here. And I would later come to find out through listening to the dash cam footage and the audio recordings that the responding officers, and they treated me well, so this is not trashing my brothers in blue at all. They were on the heels of another domestic incident involving a member of service, another police officer, a short time ago. And apparently when they handled that, it didn't go well. And the officer, or corrections officer, but the law enforcement officer eventually came back and did something, I don't know if it was a crime of violence or anything like that, but they were hesitant. But in my case, it was a verbal argument. No assault, no injury, no anything. And in New Jersey, and most other places, you have to have some predicate act of violence to generate a restraining order and the paperwork and criminal charges, of course. But when I listen to these tapes later on, I hear that we don't know what to do. There's nothing here, there's no injury, and the recommendation is made by several layers of command. We'll ask her if she wants a restraining order, and then if she says yes, we'll make it a domestic. I thought she was never going to ask, or want it, but lo and behold, my loving wife took the option to get a restraining order, and I was devastated. I'm now entering a system that I'm sworn to uphold and protect, and it's actually being used in a way that I would say is improper. So the restraining order is issued. They give me this news. What goes along with the restraining order is a seizure of any firearms ID card and any personally owned weapons, as well as your duty weapon. And I let them know my father has a collection that's been in, a locked area in the house for quite some time. And it was a decent collection, 20 plus firearms and things he had purchased legally over time, probably dating back to like the 1970s up until now. So they served me with the restraining order and they seize all those weapons. And I remember that night, they had to escort me out of my own home and away from the children. And I said, can I just say goodbye to them? And I remember going over and telling them I gotta go. And I can hear their screams, worse than any police call I ever been on, in my own heart. They're screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, please don't go, please don't go." And it was wailing screams. And I said, it's okay. And I said something I probably shouldn't have, but I said, Mommy got us in a little bit of trouble. So I'm torn away from the home. And now I got to live with no spare money, just a bag in hand. And I'm served with a restraining order. So now I'm suspended from work, at the time with pay. But my children, I was a day-to-day dad, an Easter Bunny dress up in the Easter Bunny outfit, the Santa Claus, every goofy meme that you want to see about a suburban dad, that was me, and a cop. So now I got to go to a motel, and it's a no-tell motel, as they say. And I'm living off of probably college student ramen noodles and everything you can put in a microwave just to get by until there's a hearing for this restraining order. Had to hire an attorney, which I did not really have the means for, but it was out of necessity. And a lot of these things in law enforcement, when we see restraining orders that are issued, especially in tumultuous relationships, it's usually the Friday night restraining order and then the Monday morning dismissal. They come in like clockwork. We would call them the 5 o'clock domestic violence victim is here for the restraining order. And I kind of thought I might have fell into that bucket just because maybe my wife was going through something and had thought better of it, but that was not to be. She decided she wanted to pursue the restraining order and have it finalized. And a final restraining order is sometimes a third rail of a career in law enforcement. It means you can't carry a firearm, could lose my job. A 20 plus year career that I had built with family intentions, successful by some standards, I would say. And now I'm about to lose it all over a verbal argument. And I've seen the criminal justice system, and they get it right a lot of times, but they also get it wrong. So I try and be an umpire and call balls and strikes like I see them. And we go to a full-blown hearing. And at the end of the hearing, I prevail. The judge says there's absolutely no grounds for this restraining order. I'm dismissing it on its face. So this weight of relief comes over me that we can get the family back on track. My job is saved, maybe not untattered, but we can move forward with this thing in some semblance of order and get those children back to the place where they need to be. After it's dismissed, I go back to the family home after a little bit of a cooling off period because I want everything to be normalized, and I come back to a vacant home. No children, much of the belongings are gone, everything's gone, and I'm there alone. And it turns out that my wife did not want me to see the children, did not want to see me. There's no court impediment, but just did not want me to be a part of the children's lives, clearly. So I had to now venture into the family court system, which I had very little or no experience doing, and I needed an attorney's help. So I actually had to go into court and actually force my spouse to bring the children to the home to see their father. So this is about a month after the original incident, and I'm preparing for them to come home, getting sort of daddy-daughter stuff, mac and cheese, pizza, the whole thing, you know, for this little homecoming. And I got to get in my car, and where I live, it's middle class, suburban, kind of a busy street, and my neighbors had already been experienced with a bunch of police cars coming to the home. The first time police cars ever came to the home in response to an emergency. There's a little bit of neighbor shame going on. So I get in my car, and I start it up, and I put it in reverse, and almost immediately I see in the rearview mirror an unmarked car pull right behind mine in the middle of the afternoon in the suburban neighborhood. So it must be an accident or something. I wasn't even thinking. Another marked car, an unmarked car. Another car comes driving up on my lawn. Another one. There must have been over a dozen police cars, prosecutor's office detectives, guns drawn at me in the driver's seat in my own driveway. And that's when I knew something very, very serious was about to occur. And hands up, I said, "What's going on? I am at your command. I am not moving." And I'm pulled out of the car, and they said, "You know what this is about?" I said, "I really don't." And they say, "It's about the guns." And I said, "You have all the guns." I said, "Everything was dismissed." They said, "It's about the guns." Now, an active duty police lieutenant, and I'm handcuffed, arrested in front of my entire neighborhood, placed into the back of a marked police car, and I'm transported under arrest to the local police department. I'm processed. I'm put in a holding cell with other prisoners, and they didn't mistreat me, the local PD. You know, they were good to me, and I just tried to say, I said, "What is all this about?" And they said, "The guns." Apparently 2 out of the multitude of the collection of firearms turned out to be classified at some point in time as assault weapons. They were 2 AR-15s, purchased by my father, legally at the time. And during the time that I had them in storage, at some unknown point, they went from being a legal firearm to a banned firearm under New Jersey state law. Unbeknownst to me, no notice, anything like that. When I originally inherited them, I went to the local PD and said, "I've inherited these through probate. I'd like to register them, if at all possible, and just do the right thing." And they handed me this little piece of paper, and they said, "You can do it if you want to, but you don't really have to." I said, "Well, are you sure?" I said, "It's voluntary. It's a voluntary register." So I said, "All right." And I never did. What I come to find out, in addition to those 2 AR-15s, is that, and I had never fired them and never used them, there were magazines that were considered high-capacity magazines. So that's something that has in excess of 10 rounds of ammunition that could be stored. Also purchased legally by my father. But there was over a dozen of them. And the prosecutor's office was criminally charging me with all of it, which is the reason for the arrest. And I said, "All right, you know, I would have come and turned myself in if I knew this was a problem." You know, and I said, "You know, whatever, give me the summons, I'll appear for court and all that. I'm not a flight risk. I'm an active duty police officer. I have a passport. I'm a pillar of the community, I would say, a dad." And they said, "No, it's on a warrant." And at the time, there was a lot of discussion about bail reform going on nationwide as well as locally. And I had seen in my experience as a cop, people were carjackers, assaulters, resistors, no bail. Like they just, no bail at all. They summons, release them, and they come back for court. And whether you agree with that or not, I had seen it. So I was perplexed. Why me? And I said, all right, well, what's the bail then? And they said, no bail, Tom. There's no bail at all. You're going to the county jail. You're being incarcerated. And when I heard the charges, 2 second-degree felony counts of possession of an assault weapon, which carry a mandatory sentence consecutively of 10 years each. So that would be a non-discretionary sentence. The judges don't even have any latitude. It's something called the Graves Act in New Jersey. The judges can't reduce the sentence. They can't change the sentence. It is just black letter law, and they have to follow it. So I was facing 20 years in prison. And then the magazines. The magazines in some probably carried another sentence of 10 years in prison. So I am now looking at 30 years in prison, in state prison, for this event. And I'm thinking about my children. Yeah, I thought about my career, I thought about my job, I thought about the marriage. I'm thinking about these beautiful souls that I brought into this world. And you feel like a failure. So I felt a failure as a cop, failure as a father, failure as a husband. And then it comes to be transported. And that town, the city rather, Newark, New Jersey, is where the Essex County Correctional Facility is located in New Jersey. And at the time, in 2019, it was considered one of the most unsafe and dangerous correctional facilities at the county level in New Jersey. There's federal reports on it, that high violence and everything else. And that's just for a regular inmate. I'm now an active police lieutenant on my way to the county jail where I work, where I have put people in that very correctional facility who would not be too pleased to see me. And some were serious criminals. And I'm just waiting for the face that I'm going to see down there. Take the ride, and there's, it's called the Green Monster. That's the nickname that it is in New Jersey, because there's a very large steel wall that goes along the side, and it's this sickly color green. The gate's open, I'm in the police car, and what I had come to find out is that the officers that were transporting me called ahead to the facility to have the booking area cleared out of concern for my safety. And that seems like a great idea at the time, but any inmate that's done any time knows when they're clearing that area, it's either an informant or somebody that they don't want the other prisoners to know or see. And it had the probably unintended consequence of doing that with just me. I mean, you could get shanked in there just as easy as anywhere else in the facility. I'm brought in, I'm fingerprinted, I'm photographed, I'm strip searched, naked, spread the butt cheeks, everything in there. The interview questions, my sexuality. I'm given the tuberculosis test underneath the arm. And I'm given my orange jumpsuit, a blanket, and a pillow. And now I got to do the perp walk. And if you think race relations are bad outside in quote unquote normal society, they're exponentially worse in a correctional facility. And I'm a white male, active police lieutenant going into a heavily urbanized correctional facility. And I'm getting every racial epithet hurled at me as I'm walking down there. I was shell-shocked. I did not look tough at all. I don't look tough now, but I definitely didn't look tough then. And I'm doing the walk, and all these cracker, mother effer, new boy, all that shit that you think of in a jail or prison movie. I go down there, and there's another inmate who happens to be in my cell, and they eject him from the cell so I can have it to myself. And he was not too pleased about that. And he came back after the door was closed, and he starts popping off to me in there. And I won't use the language he used, but at the end, he did this thing underneath, doing the finger slit your throat thing. And I said, I gotta learn how to be a prisoner. So my charges were gun charges, and I just looked back at him and I did this. I don't know if it was right, wrong. It was an audible. I didn't know what else to do. So I said, I'm gonna spend a night in jail and then I'm gonna get out in the morning. 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, no hearing, no nothing. And you don't sleep in this particular correctional facility. There's lighting, which you consider in high beam, and then at nighttime it just goes to a low beam. So there's no lights out, there's no sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't sleep, I think, for the 4 days straight that I was there. And finally there comes a day for a hearing, and I go before a judge. At the time I had to get a public defender because I didn't have a criminal attorney, and they denied my release for reasons that are still inexplicable to me. So now I'm in there another night. I don't know when I'm getting out, and I'm preparing for a 30-year stint. There's no trial yet, but I'm preparing for my life in a split second to go from cop to inmate. And it comes a time where they say, we have to transport you to another county for your own protection. So I get hooked up in a chain gang with all the rest of the other prisoners. And right next to them. I mean, you're right in line with every prisoner, and we're getting in there, and in the prisoner transport van, they have an isolation sort of cell, and they take me off the chain gang and put me in the isolation cell. And I didn't look much different than my hair was shorter, and I don't think I had my goatee back then. I don't know why I laugh. You find humor in the most gallows of places, like cop humor. And I'm looking, and I could see in their eyes, they're like, what the hell did this guy do? It's like, what? I must be a serial murderer. I was like Hannibal Lecter in this cell, and I just kind of gave him a little nod like that, trying to fake it, really. But then I'm brought to this other county. It's a Bergen County jail in New Jersey. Better, but still jail. And I'm there for 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know when I'm going out. And anxiety, as you can imagine, crept in. And this is the people at the jail actually treated me very well. There were actually immigration detainees there that gave me their extra food. And the correction officers, everybody started to know me and my story. And I remember one correction officer in particular, he goes, "You're that police lieutenant from Essex County, right?" He goes, "Everybody's talking about you, man. And they're hearing your story, and everybody is in complete disbelief." And I remember looking at him saying, "You ain't the only one, brother." And I finally, after 13 days in jail, am brought before a judge. I have an attorney at this point, and they were still reluctant to release me. I was going to have to await trial, and I couldn't figure it out. But I prevailed there, and they actually decided, we will release you, but under restrictions. Again, this is 13 days from being on-duty police lieutenant to criminal, and they said, you're going to be placed on electronic monitoring. So now I'm getting an ankle bracelet. No injury, no crime of violence, nothing. And that's exactly what they did. They transported me from the jail to pretrial services, and I had to be outfitted with an electronic bracelet. And that went on for almost 6 months. And I couldn't see my children. I couldn't work. I'm now suspended without pay. I'm in fear of losing the generational home that I thought was going to be for my children. And I'm in a really, really bad place. The thin blue line that we talk about, police officers, I now became the pariah. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody returned my calls. There's now an internal affairs investigation that I'm the target of. And we think about, cops that just huddle around and protect their own. All those colleagues, all those people that I would have laid down my life for, they didn't even give me a phone call. And I can't explain the feeling of loss. Listen, lots of people get arrested. Lots of people have family troubles. Lots of people lose their liberty. Lots of people lose income. Lots of people lose all of these things. And I don't know anybody that's lost it all in one day. And I'm about to spend my life in prison. I was 49 years old at the time, and I'm going to spend 30 years in prison. I'm going to get out at 79 years old, maybe. My life, my entire life has gone up like flash paper. So trial comes. And, I saw the way the law was written. I saw how these things were. I believed I had some exclusions, some carve-outs, some reasonable exceptions to these laws that some people might describe as draconian. And they're what they call strict liability offenses. And strict liability means that there's no criminal intent required to prove guilt on this particular charge. And, if you think of a robbery or an assault, like there's intent. There's either knowing, reckless, intentional. There's these levels of culpability. But for this particular one, there is none. And I just had a tough time reconciling that as a pretty astute police officer and knowledge of the criminal law. So we proceeded with the defense, and long story short, I prevail at the trial level. And I get the notice that all charges are to be dismissed. Not for the right reason, that I said innocence, but it was a motion to suppress the evidence. And I remember to this day falling, I'm not proud of this as a man, certainly not a manly act, but I remember falling into a heap in my living room, sobbing like a newborn baby. And I just, this relief, this catharsis, this feeling of that, it was back to when the restraining order happened. This is like the peaks and valleys of huge emotional torment and release being lifted, and I was vindicated. Well, that would be short-lived, because very short time thereafter, I think it was within days, I found out that the prosecutor's office is appealing that dismissal, and they're taking it to the New Jersey Appellate Court to recharge me and rearrest me. Back to square one. So all that crying I felt was in vain, and now I'm back to square one. I am the same suspect, and I'm waiting for the appellate division to rule on this, and that takes some time. Time goes by, and I get the news. The appellate division, you prevailed. Back in the heap. Same thing, right again.
What are the charges that you're...
The charges were the assault, firearms, 2 second-degree felony counts of possession of assault weapons, so 2 counts, and then about 14 charges of possession of high-capacity magazines.
Which were all from your dad?
All from my dad, purchased legally, had receipts, all the things. He was a law-abiding. This isn't some shady guns dealer down on a dock, shipping them off to Cuba. This is a scientist, a chemist.
Did somebody have it in for you?
I think so. I think this was politically motivated. I think there were some things that I was doing to ascend my rank another level with the police department, and I think they were none too pleased about it, and they were going to use the law and the prosecution as their own form of human resources to get rid of me, with the assistance of an angry ex-spouse. That's my belief. Do with it what you will, but I think that's what was going on. So now I prevail at the appellate division. This has got to be it, right? It could not happen again. A couple days later, I find out that they are appealing that to the New Jersey Supreme Court. And even the person that was in charge at pretrial services of my electronic monitoring said the same thing, like, what's going on here? Like, I have carjackers, I have prostitutes, I have, gangbangers. I've never seen this before. And Now I'm back right to square one again. I'm waiting for the New Jersey Supreme Court to either undertake this case and rule. Finally, I get the news. We prevailed at the New Jersey Supreme Court. There are no more appeals. All your charges are dismissed. I did my own pro se expungement orders to have any record of my arrest eradicated. Not a matter of public record. It's as if I was never arrested and this never happened. My biggest battle was just in front of me, and that's the New Jersey family court system. I had run out of all money. I hadn't seen my children in the home environment. When I was under electronic monitoring, I had to pay over $300 an hour to see my children in a supervised environment. They would not leave me alone with my children. My ex was fighting it every step of the way. And when it came to the next family court hearing to try and break this vicious cycle of fatherlessness and despair, my attorney told me, regrettably, that I did not have enough money to sustain her any longer in the family court system. And I was immediately thrust into now the family court system, which I had less knowledge of than the criminal justice system. I was my own attorney in family court in the blink of an eye. And it happened in one hearing. She was in, she was out. And they went on me on full attack, knowing that I was vulnerable. Moving for the sale of my ancestral home for 4 generations, liquidating all my assets, cocktail of inappropriate therapists and mental health professionals. And the dynamic that happens more often than not that I came to learn is this thing called parental alienation. And it's basically, people can think about it as when one spouse poisons the mind of a child against one parent, and they call that the targeted parent. So this dynamic of parental alienation is really only successfully addressed when one parent targets another and involves the children in brainwashing techniques and all these other things. If you don't throw the right professional at it, and it's a subspecialty within a subspecialty, it's a really unique niche market or profession. And if you don't do it right, you're just going to make things colossally worse. And the court just kind of wanted to throw a whole bunch of things at it that were not going to be successful. And over time, my spouse began convincing the children not to see me. So these 3 beautiful souls that were my lifeblood, the core of why I existed at that time, are now rejecting contact. And I love them without condition. But now they're being trained to hate me. And I grieve the loss of 3 daughters that are still alive. And some part of their mind, they hate me, or they dislike me, or they're afraid. And the job, the badge, the gun, nothing compares to that. So Christmas, like I said, dressing up as Santa Claus and all this other stuff comes along, and I have no hope. I have no money. I have no attorney. I don't have a job. There's 0 income. I have electronic monitoring. I can't leave my house. You have to change the battery. If the battery goes off, runs dead, it's a violation. And they were very strict about that. I had to jump out of bed one time because the alarm went off. It was in the middle of the night, and I had to swap the batteries out. No indication that it was going to go dead. But I had a last-ditch effort. I found this parents group, and it was titled the Fathers Group, but it was really parents because they help mothers in these type of situations as well. And I sent this message in a bottle out on the internet and an email, just hoping somebody would respond. And as it turns out, the head of this group is a man of the Jewish faith, so Christmas wasn't such a big deal for him, and he actually responded to me. told them my story, and I became involved with them, looked at my paperwork, and we developed strategies. It's a self-help and education group. And I was candid. I said, listen, my mind was going to the darkest of dark places at this time. And I don't think I was going to live to see Christmas Day. I had means, method, and opportunity to do so. And this answer just came out of nowhere. And I started learning the family court system, doing my own motions. And some of them I was actually pretty successful at. I was detecting corruption, other things in the family court system, systemic dysfunction. And I started actually being a student at first, and I converted into being a bit of a mentor for other people that would come on this Zoom call. And they asked me to join the board of directors of this parents group. And I tried to turn this pain into some type of purpose. I was still struggling. But at least I was not going to spend 30 years in prison. And if I got that break, you know, I should do something with it. And to date, I'm still not seeing my children. And it cuts me to the core. But I started doing that, and I ran into a veteran on this father's group, this parents group. And he was also a New Jersey police officer. And when I connected with this man, we had similar shared experiences, and we became very good friends. And he's one of my best friends to this date. And he introduced me to other members of law enforcement, people in the podcasting community, and very dear friend of mine. You know, also in the podcast community, and we're trying to get types of messages like these things out there for people who are similarly situated, especially with family court. The divorce rate, 50, 60% by some estimates. If you factor in law enforcement and military, upwards of 70, 80%. The numbers are a little elusive, but it's much, much higher with all the ills that go on with vets, police officers, family dynamics. And one of the reasons that I sit here today is not a woe is me story. I say my story is as unique as it is universal. And mine might be unique because all mine came in one day and I was facing the most serious of consequences. But there's people out there, onset of addiction, suicide, and children. Anybody I've ever asked, what is the most valuable thing in your entire life? And if they have children and they don't say children, I feel that's a character flaw. There is nothing more important to me than anything else other than my 3 daughters that I love without any condition, no matter how they feel about me. And I have to make this mess my message, my pain, my purpose, whatever it is, and just let people know they're not alone. Like my story is your story, man. And let's try and do something about this inherently dysfunctional system that just is cloaked in secrecy. It is much more destructive, or as destructive as a criminal justice system. And if I can do anything to change that by telling my story, I'm not looking for a pity party. I just want to do something with this. And I feel that's why I've been given it. I've been given this tragedy to do something with it. And I got great cops, vets, fathers, mothers alike. And I'm going to keep telling it because that's all I can do while I try and get back with my girls.
So your prison time is
gone.
Is gone.
It's dismissed. So, but I still fight to get my reinstatement with my employer, or separation agreement, so I can have some semblance of a pension and provide for those 3 girls. I'm going to provide for them whether I see them or not. But no prison time, it was a close call. It was a close call on more than one occasion. 4 fronts, if you count.
But you're no longer working.
No longer no longer working as a police officer.
And your pension is?
In limbo. It's in limbo, just hanging there, and you know, my employer is reluctant to award it to me. So I'm hoping to negotiate that. I'd rather negotiate that, but my livelihood, I am a completely different man than I was on March 28th, 2019. I'm a different man. Hopefully there's some improvement there, but there's trauma, additional trauma from the law enforcement career, just seeing the death, the carnage, and everything else. But this, and this is echoed by my veteran and law enforcement friends, there is nothing that can compare to having your children taken from you and family court. I mean, police work and vet work is excruciatingly hard on the mind, but this family court thing is a totally different beast. It will cut you down to your core and try and financially erase you from existence of being a parent. And you know, listen, I'm a cop with an inmate number, but really my core story is that I'm a childless father, and they're still alive. And I hope that changes. I really do. I don't know if it ever will, but if I can't change it for me, you're gonna be damn well I'm gonna try and change it for somebody else. Maybe just through this story. I hope that's what happens.
It's a hell of a story.
It's a doozy.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily proud, but I feel obligated to get it out there.
Well, Tom, I wish you all the luck in the world. You're going to need it, sounds like.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.